phones, Babylons can't crack the code.
What do YouTube? B Kelly back again with another banger video. In today's video, y'all, I'm going to take a look at the top 5 quarterbacks in this up-and-coming 2021 NFL Draft. With this video, I'm going to talk about what they were like coming out of high school, their college career, and their strengths and weaknesses going into the NFL. Also, quick disclaimer, when I talk about the quarterbacks in this video in this order that I have, it's not based off who's better and who's not. The order that I have is kind of the way I see them falling in the draft, from 1st to 5th. The first quarterback that I'm going to be talking about today is what many people see as the consensus number 1 pick in this upcoming NFL draft, and that is Trevor Lawrence. Coming out of the 2018 recruiting class, Trevor Lawrence ranked as the number 1 player nationally and a 5-star recruit according to the 24/7 composite rankings. Now, he held a lot of offers to go to some of the top schools in the nation, obviously because he was the number 1 player in his class, but he chose to go to Clemson. Trevor Lawrence in high school had some insane stats while he was a 4-year starting varsity quarterback, and he rarely ever lost a game. He had 13,745 passing yards, 160 passing touchdowns, and only 21 interceptions in 4 seasons. When Trevor Lawrence first got to Clemson in his freshman year in 2018, he was originally the backup quarterback to Kelly Bryant, but eventually, after 4 games, he would end up being the starting quarterback for Clemson, where he would help lead them to the national championship and even win the national championship that season. His stats included 65% passes completed, 3,280 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions. Just off 1 season alone, Trevor Lawrence showed the college football world that he was going to be one of the top quarterbacks in all of college football. In the 2019 college football season, as a sophomore, Trevor Lawrence would lead Clemson to yet another national championship game, except this time he would lose his first ever college football game in the hands of one of the best college football teams of all time, in my opinion, in the LSU Tigers. In this season, Trevor Lawrence completed 66% of his passes, threw for 3,665 yards, 36 touchdowns, and only 8 interceptions. He also rushed for 9 touchdowns on the ground this season. In his junior campaign at Clemson in the 2020 college football season, he would lead them to the college football playoff semifinal, where they would end up losing to Ohio State. In 10 games in this season, he would end up throwing for 3,153 yards, completing 69% of his passes, 24 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. On the ground, he would end up having 8 rushing touchdowns as well. He would finish his career as a Clemson Tiger, only losing 2 games as a starting quarterback, and completing 67% of his passes, while throwing for 10,098 yards, 90 touchdowns, and only 17 interceptions. Although Trevor Lawrence does have a lot of strengths that do make him seem like almost a perfect quarterback prospect, he does have a few weaknesses that some NFL scouts have called out, such as pocket management skills, which he can improve over time, a slimmer quarterback frame than most quarterbacks would have, and also holding on to reads too long. Now, those weaknesses are not bad at all and can be worked on right when he gets into the league. The next quarterback that I'm going to be talking about is Zach Wilson. Now, Zach Wilson also came out of the 2018 recruiting class, and as a recruit, he was very low ranked, as he was ranked as the 958th best player in the nation and a 3-star player, as well as the 38th best pro-style quarterback. Now, he would end up taking his talents to BYU, although he did grow up a Utah fan. Zach Wilson was his high school's varsity starting quarterback for 2 seasons, his junior and senior season. His career totals for his varsity high school football career are 5,842 passing yards while completing 62% of his passes, 45 passing touchdowns, and only 14 interceptions. On the ground in his career, he rushed for 1,310 yards, averaging 6 yards per carry, and 11 touchdowns. In Zach Wilson's true freshman season, he would show a lot of promise as BYU's quarterback. Now, he would not be the starting quarterback in the beginning of the season, but he would eventually come in as the starting quarterback, after the starter got injured. Now, he would play in 9 games in the 2018 college football season, where he completed 66% of his passes, threw for 1,578 yards, 12 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. On the ground, he rushed for 221 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Zach Wilson in this season as well would have a huge game versus Western Michigan in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl that would give him a lot of hype going into the 2019 season. In the 2019 season, in his sophomore campaign, he was the starting quarterback for BYU for the first time in his career to start the season off. Now, in this season, he would struggle with some injury issues, and he would have a down year because of his injury issues he was dealing with pretty much the entire season. But in this season, he would help lead BYU to a 7-6 record, including a bowl game loss to Hawaii in the Hawaii Bowl, and he would end up completing 62% of his passes while throwing for 2,382 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. For his junior campaign in the 2020 college football season, Zach Wilson would break out and shock a lot of people that are college football fans and NFL fans, and he skyrocketed his stock the entire season, game by game, in this year. In 12 games played, he would complete 74% of his passes while throwing for 3,692 yards, 33 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. He would have 10 rushing touchdowns as well. BYU would have a lot of success in this season, as they would have a very good record of 11-1. Some of Zach Wilson's most notable strengths are him being mobile, having a strong arm, being really accurate, and being able to extend plays. But some of his weaknesses that people have called out recently is the competition he played at BYU, particularly in his last season, although he really didn't have any control over that at all, and overextending plays a little bit too much. Now, what I mean by that is basically making the play go by a lot longer. It may work in college, but it does not always work in the NFL, and some people do have concerns about that. The next quarterback that I'm going to be talking about today is Justin Fields out of the 2018 recruiting class. Now, in the 2018 recruiting class, he would also rush for 2,096 yards, averaging a very impressive 7 yards per carry, and a total of 28 career touchdowns on the ground. Justin Fields would only spend 1 season at Georgia, where he did appear in every game while he was there as a backup quarterback to Jake Fromm. But after that 1 season, he would end up transferring to Ohio State, and he would immediately become the starting quarterback. In his first season as the starting quarterback at Ohio State in the 2019 college football season, in his sophomore campaign, he would end up playing in 14 games, where he completed 67% of his passes, threw for 3,273 yards, 41 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. On the ground in this season, he would end up rushing for 10 touchdowns as well. He would help lead the Buckeyes to the college football playoff semifinal, where he would end up losing to Clemson and Trevor Lawrence. He would also lead them to a 13-1 record just in his first season as a starting quarterback. In Justin Fields' 2020 campaign as a junior, he would only appear in 8 games for the Buckeyes, as that's all they played because the Big Ten played a shortened season. But in those 8 games, he did ball out and help lead the Buckeyes to the national championship game, where they lost to Alabama. In this season, he would complete 70% of his passes while throwing for 2,100 yards, 22 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions, and he rushed for 5 touchdowns on the ground. Some of Justin Fields' strengths as a quarterback include being a natural playmaker, having a very good arm, and being able to hit people on deep routes. He has all the tools to be a franchise quarterback and to be a good quarterback in the NFL. He's very good on the ground, and he keeps his composure very well. Now, some of his weaknesses that some people have called him out on is that he needs to read defenses better. Some of his decision-making can be off sometimes, and he does force plays as well. The next quarterback that I'm going to be talking about is Trey Lance from the 2018 recruiting class. Now, in this class, he was a 3-star recruit and ranked as the 2005th best player in the nation. Now, he did hold 7 Division I offers, but most of them wanted him to be a defensive player, as he was a pretty good defensive player in high school as a safety. But he wanted to be a quarterback and decided to go to North Dakota State. In Trey Lance's senior season as the starting quarterback for his high school football team, he threw for 1,229 yards while completing 54% of his passes and had 10 touchdowns through the air and 3 interceptions. On the ground, he rushed for 512 yards and 7 41 touchdowns. In Trey Lance's true freshman season at North Dakota State, he would end up redshirting, but in 2019, as a redshirt freshman, he would be the starting quarterback for the Bison, and he would absolutely go beast mode as he completed 67% of his passes, threw for 2,786 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions, while rushing for 1,100 yards on the ground, averaging a very impressive 6.5 yards per carry and 14 touchdowns. He would also win the Division I FCS title this season. Trey Lance's last season at North Dakota State for the 2020 college football season would be a very short one, as he would only play in one game, and so would the team in that season versus Central Arkansas. Now, he would throw for 2 touchdowns in that game while also rushing for 2 touchdowns, and he would also have his one lone interception in his college football career. He would finish his college football career undefeated. Some of Trey Lance's strengths include being very mobile, having some very good speed, having a very good arm, having an arm that can connect people and lead people on very deep routes, being very poised in the pocket, and being a threat in the run game. Now, some of the weaknesses that he does have is that he is raw. Some people say he lacks experience, as he's only played as a starting quarterback on the college football level for one full season. Another thing that people are critical on him for is that he doesn't really throw in tight windows, and when his first read is covered, he usually just takes off running for the most part. The last quarterback that I'm going to be talking about today is Mac Jones from the 2017 recruiting class. And in the 2017 recruiting class, he ranked as a 3-star recruit and the 399th best player in the nation and the 18th ranked pro-style quarterback. Now, Mac Jones, coming out of this class, held a variety of offers to big Power 5 schools, and he would end up choosing Alabama after decommitting from Kentucky. In Mac Jones' freshman season at Alabama in the 2017 college football season, he would end up redshirting. And in 2018, as a redshirt freshman, he would be a backup the entire season, only playing in 6 games. And in 2019, he started off as a backup quarterback to Tua Tagovailoa, but he would eventually become the starting quarterback when Tua went down with injury. He would end up playing in 11 games that season, where he completed 69% of his passes, threw for 1,503 yards, 14 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. Going into the 2020 college football season, Mac Jones did have some doubters around his game about how he would play for the Crimson Tide as the starting quarterback in the beginning. Even some think he would eventually get replaced. But he would end up having an amazing season where he completed 77% of his passes while throwing for 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions. He would end up finishing 3rd in Heisman voting in this season and would win the national championship. Some of Mac Jones' strengths is that he throws an accurate ball, he's very composed in the pocket, and he's very intelligent. Now, some of the weaknesses and criticisms of Mac Jones' game is that he does have a good arm, but his arm strength isn't really the best of the best. He's not a running threat, and some people think he's only going to be a game manager in the NFL. Now that I'm at the end of the video, leave your comments down below about who you think is going to be the best quarterback out of this draft class. And remember, before you leave, to smash that like button, turn on them post notifications, and subscribe for more videos. B. Kelly, out.